As promised, here is a Mr. Dooley column from Finley Peter Dunne, titled An International Police Force. It's a period commentary on the Venezuela debt crisis being referred to the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague, as I described in this week's episode. A couple of things I want to make sure you know before you start. If you've ever read a Mr. Dooley column, you know that Dunne uses lots of apostrophes and misspells many words in order to convey that the characters are speaking in a heavy Irish brogue. I can't do a heavy Irish brogue, unfortunately, so I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to read it straight. I should have probably recruited Zach Twomley to read this. The Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague came out of a peace conference called by the Russian Emperor. We haven't gotten to that story yet in the podcast, although we definitely will. But in the meantime, when Mr. Dooley talks about the court as if it's the Tsar's idea, well, that's what he's referring to. The Habsburgs are the dynasty of the Austrian emperor and an old and distinguished aristocratic house. You probably already knew that. The Hohenzollerns are the German imperial dynasty, so Bill Hohenzollern is our old friend Kaiser Wilhelm II. Edward is the King of Britain, son and successor to Queen Victoria. You probably recall British Colonial Secretary Joseph Chamberlain, and Emilio Castro is the President of Venezuela. An international police force. I thought, said Mr. Dooley, that when me young friend the Tsar of Russia got up that there Dutch police court for to settle the backyard quarrels among the nations of the earth, 'twould be the end of war for good and all. It looked all right to me. Why not? If by any chance I get myself full of misconduct and go around trying to collect me debts with a gun and camp out in somebody's house and won't leave, the police take me down to Deering Street Station and throw me in among the little playmates of the criminal. And in the morning I'm before me cousin, the Chief Justice, and he confiscates the gun and sends me up the boulevard for 30 days. Why not the same thing for the powers when they go off on a tear? I thought I'd be reading in the papers. Judge Uhlenboff at the Hague Court had a large docket yesterday morning. 30 members of the notorious Habsburg family were sent up for various terms, and the police think they have completely broken up the gang. The King of Spain was charged with non-support, but was dismissed with a warning. The Emperor of China was let off with a fine for maintaining a dope joint, and warrants were issued for the owners of the premises, the King of England and the Tsar of Russia. The Sultan of Turkey, alias Hamid the Hick, alias the Tumble Turk, was charged with polygamy. The court gave him the alternative of 30 days or 5 more wives. When these cases had been cleared away, the bailiff led into the dock 3 notorious characters. The first was a large, heavy-set German who proved to be Bill the Bite, less known by his true name of William H.J.E.I.K.L.M.N.O.P.Q.R.S.T., etc., Hohenzollern. By his side was an undersized little dark man, the notorious Emilio Castro, a professional deadbeat and embezzler, and a stout party by the name of Albert Edward, or Edwards, who is said by the international police to be behind some of the biggest grafts that have been run through for the last 20 years, though never so far caught with the goods on. Hohenzollern was accused of assault with intent to kill, robbery, blackmail, carrying concealed weapons, and resisting an officer. Edward, or Edwards, was charged with maintaining a fence for receiving stolen property and carrying concealed weapons. Castro was charged with vagrancy, maintaining a disorderly house, and fraud. The attorney for the prosecution made out a strong case against the prisoners. He said that Hohenzollern was a desperate character who was constantly a menace to the peace of the world. He had no sympathy for Castro, who was an idle, dangerous ruffian, and he hoped the court would deal severely with him. He never paid his debts, and none of his neighbors' chickens were safe from him. He was a low-down, worthless, mischief-making loafer. But Castro's bad character did not excuse the other prisoners. It seems that Castro, who never paid anybody anything, owed a bill with the well-known grocery firm of Schwartzheim and Hicks, which he refused to settle. Hearing of this, Hohenzollern and Edward, or Edwards, conspired together to go to Castro's place under pretense of collecting the bill and throw Castro out and take possession of his property. Hohenzollern was the more violent of the pair. He appeared carrying loaded revolvers, which he fired into the windows of Castro's shop, smashed in the door and endangered the lives of many innocent people. He was arrested after a struggle in which he severely injured one of the international police force and was carried off in a hurry-up wagon. Edward, or Edwards, was caught in the neighborhood. He pretended to be an innocent spectator, but when searched was found to have loaded revolvers in his pocket, as well as an address to the Christian nations of the world justifying his conduct and denouncing his accomplice. Castro was taken into custody on general principles. The prosecution asked that an example be made of the prisoners. After testimony had been introduced showing the bad character of the men in the dock, Hohenzollern was put on the stand to testify in his own defense. He swore that he had no enmity against Castro, but Schwarzheim of Schwarzheim and Hicks was a German friend of his, and he went down to see that no injustice was done him. "Did he ask you to go?" asked the court. "No," said the prisoner, "but my prestige as a slugger would be in danger if I didn't go over and punch this here little one. Never, never should it be said that a German citizen shan't be able to collect his debts anywhere but in Germany," he says. "The mailed fist," he says, "is ever raised for the protection." "No more of that," says the judge. "This is a court of law. Hohenzollern, you're a dangerous man. You're noisy, riotous, and offensive. I'm determined to make an example of you, and I sentence you to stay in Germany for the rest of your natural life, and may the Lord have mercy on your soul. As for you, Edwards, you're even worse. I will hold you without bail until the police can collect all their evidence against you. Castro, you're discharged. The worst thing I could think of doing to you is to send you back to your beautiful Venezuela." The prisoner Hohenzollern made a demonstration while being removed from the dock. It is understood that Edward, or Edwards, has offered to tell all he knows and promises to implicate several prominent parties. "That's the way I thought it would be. By heavens, Hennessy, I looked forward to the day when, if a king, emperor, or czar started a roughhouse, the blue bus would come clanging through the streets and they'd be hauled off to Holland for trial. I looked to see the United States Senate pulled in every month or two, and all the officers of the Navy fugitives from justice. I thought the court would have a kind of a bridewell built, where they'd send the international drunks and disorderlies, and where you could go any day and see William Hohenzollern cooper in a barrel, and me friend Joe Chamberlain pegging shoes, while great war editors, correspondents, statesmen, and other disturbers of the peace walked around in lockstep, and the keeper of the jail showed you a book full of photographs with the most notorious of them. Number 2001, Joe Chamberlain, professional land grabber, 5 years. Or William Hohenzollern, all-around ruffian, life. That would be the fine day when the wagon would be backed up in front of the parliaments of the world, and the bullpen would be full of international grifters, get-rich-quick operators, and strong-arm men, when the Monroe Doctrine would be condemned as a public nuisance, and South America would be burned under orders from the court. But it hasn't come. The court is there, nodding over the docket just like a court, while outside the rowdies are shooting each other, holding up Chinamen, picking pockets, blowing safes, and endangering the lives of decent people. There's a warrant out for Bill Hohenzollern, but there's no one to serve it. He's on the rampage, breaking windows and chasing people over the roofs, while Edward, or Edwards, stands around the corner waiting for the goods to be delivered and saving his ammunition to use it on his pal if they quarrel over the divide. There's the international court, you say, but I say, where are the police? A court's all right enough, but no court's any good unless it's backed up by a contented constabulary. The Tsar of Russia didn't go far enough. One good copper with a hickory club is worth all the judges between Amsterdam and Rotterdam. I want to see the day when such as Bill Hohenzollern and Edward, or Edwards, meets on the corner and prepares a raid on a laundry, when a big policeman will step out of a door and say, "I want you, Bill, and you might as well come along quiet." But I suppose it would be just the same thing as it is now in real life. "How's that?" asked Mr. Hennessy. "All the biggest crooks would get on the police force," said Mr. Dooley.